But on the other hand, don't forget that you will be asking questions. So speak up, but that means that you are also allowing the camera to record you. There you go. You made it. Sweet. So we have a panel discussion. The topic is open source, maintenance, development, working for everything. I do have a couple questions, so I will help if needed to navigate the discussion a little bit. But this is a panel discussion, which means we have 4 experts here, and we have the audience. And the audience is asking questions, and they're going to reply from different angles, I believe. So we do have representatives of, let's say, 3 different approaches, angles, companies. There is a company that works with open source and publishes open source. Red Hat, this is Peter and Miro. Because it's so important for open source companies, we have 2 of them. We have a company that, can I say it's a commercial company?
That's Red Hat as well.
Oh, we'll see, you know, the definition of company. That's right. Anyways, it's Honza from Elastic, and Stan, even though he said that he works for a company and he's trying to build them more open source to contribute, he is here on the panel discussion as the representative of a single individual who published something as an open source and had hard times and good times and all this stuff. Hard times mainly. Okay, interesting.
I have a question. Are we missing anybody? Would anybody like to be here?
Is there anyone from Red Hat? No, that's it is a great question. If you feel like we could have one slot, if you feel like you really.
Or like it's unfair that there are 2 Red Hat person here or something.
Change that question from
yes, absolutely. If you feel comfortable answering any questions, just jump right in. It's open to everyone.
Perfect. Let's start. As I said, feel free to ask questions, because otherwise I'll be asking my long questions, which I don't know. We have about 30 minutes for this. So at 9-ish, we'll just close it and then we'll continue with lightning talks. Okay, gentlemen.
That's so sad.
It is. It's pretty sad. Next time.
We'll get there.
I hope there will be a lady here. My first question is, from your perspective, or your company's perspective, or your approach perspective, what is the main ingredients, what is the main requirement of an open source project? Who wants to start?
If I can start. So there are several things that go into it. First of all, it's the formal definition, and that is, we have an open source initiative which sort of certify licenses to be open source compatible. So if you publish your code in under one of those licenses, then the code might be considered open source. Of course, there are alternative theories, as there is for everything, but for the formal definition, this is as good as any. But this is not enough to make an open source project viable or successful or anything like that. So while there is a formal definition, which is like the minimal requirement, like it needs to be code that others can reuse, modify, adapt, and usually even resell, that is not enough. That is just a bare minimum. As a real open source project requires other things as well. So that's the question. Like, what is your question?
Next question.
Next person. The requirements of a successful or unsuccessful. But source requirements, the main ingredient
Main ingredient?
from your perspective.
What do you mean?
What does the project has to have?
So, in order to make it successful, what does that open source project need to have?
That's a very good question.
Thank you.
Well,
Maybe you should say what does it mean successful?
yeah, what does it mean successful? Well,
Okay, what does it mean successful?
Project.
so let's define successful project. I guess that people use that project. It's kind of successful to me, even though some people hate this project. Still they use it. Some people love it. Well, it's kind of successful. And
So do you need people contributing back for you to consider it as successful, or is that an optional thing?
well, for some it might be optional. I know that there's some project called Decorators, I think, and it was presented on EuroPython, and the project itself, it has like a hell of a download because it's used by popular projects actually, but the project itself is not that known. So it has a little contributions, but it's downloaded like hell, and that's kind of successful, but I don't know. Depends on the person, I guess.
Okay, so for you,
For me, like successful project is that people use it, they don't hate it, and yeah, I help people by creating the project.
I just have a question or addition to this. If there is a project which is used by other bigger projects, isn't it automatically means that it's successful because when they have a problem with it, they will contribute upstream, and therefore this little project will be always up to date and will be always designed to whatever they need it. So it will be always the cog in the machine. But it might not be as known by itself, but it will have support by developers, because if they need something to be added there, they will add it.
Yeah, in this case, in Decorators, the project is actually stable for several years. Nobody complains, and the main guy is just like adding some features, and so there is no reason to complain. There is no reason to report that many issues. So actually,
So it's like a wheel and there is no need to reinvent it.
yeah.
So, if I can take over, I think that every project has its own goal. If the goal of the project is to be useful to other projects, and it's actually useful to other projects, and it's successful. If the goal of the project is to bring in a good community and make everybody happy, and it does that, then it's successful. If the goal of the project is to make big money and it actually sells, then it's successful. And success might mean different things to different people and different projects. So yeah, it just depends on what success is.
Okay, though on top of that, I think there is a big difference between a successful product, even if it's open source, and between a successful project. I mean, if you have a throw code over the wall open source model, and everybody uses that particular software, just taking it for free and using it and never giving you anything back, but you build it and you mine their user data for advertising, you make a lot of money and you might have a successful product, but it doesn't necessarily mean to me that this is a successful open source project. As Honza said, legally this is all open source, but when I hear open source project, it's not a definition, it's what I have a picture in my mind, is that the project actually has open structure, open source by design, by love, and not just by legal definitions. And in that case, even a very successful open source project can be a totally not successful product. Nobody buys, nobody uses, but it's a very successful project because people learn doing stuff around it. And that goes back to Peter, it depends on what is a success to this project. I mean, for example, PyLadies is a project, it's not a software project, and when I say PyLadies, I mean the Czech beginners stuff we do here that we teach, usually ladies, to code in Python. And there is no successful product that everybody buys. I mean, is it? But we generate a lot of new people that are underrepresented in this panel at last, and that is a success in some way, at least a partial one. So
Partial success.
it will be a total success once this panel is no longer all males.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, of course, it depends on the metrics, what you set. As we are on the Python meetup, and I would pick, for example, simple Python library. What is the just 1, 2, 3 most important things for this library to have, so I can open source it? Is there anything, or can I just throw it over the wall?
Three things.
Documentation, documentation, documentation.
And license.
And license.
Yes.
4 things.
So the
By
license,
one error.
I think we covered that by the requirements. So that was, I interpreted this question as this: what is the nice things to have? What is the important things to have? Requirement is a condition that's required but not sufficient. And so yes, if we're talking about open source project, which means that it fulfills the boring definition that I mentioned earlier,
You
then
can actually use it.
you can, yes. Then the 3 most important things are documentation. And I'm saying that, by the way, fully well that my projects don't have that. Just so that we're absolutely clear.
So the problem with that is there's documentation and there's documentation. For a successful project, you need to document how to use it, how it works, and how to contribute. Which means there actually has to be a way for it to work, for it to be usable, and for people to contribute. If you have that and you also document it, then yeah, you're good.
And it's up to date.
And you
People
can
can
go
fix
left between the fairy tales and unicorns.
I mean, we're talking about the ideal state. This is something to aspire to.
Oh yes, this is not a requirement to open source.
Yes.
Right? If you open source it, so like I have a little library that makes videos from Pyvo meetups, and it has no documentation. It's very horribly written, but
The code is the documentation.
I open source.
This was a joke.
He said it was horrible written, so it's
It
like,
was very
no.
horribly written. It's still very horribly written. Nobody knows how to use it. I had to actually talk to people in person, tell them how to use it, and
It's a form of
that's pretty good. And they wrote some documentation for me.
That's a successful
Open
project.
source.
Yes, that's a system.
And he wants to really say
Yeah,
something.
I have a question. That's exactly like I want to ask, like, if you have, I don't know what you do exactly in Red Hat and so on, but you write code and then you have some documentation and you have some contributions to the code usually, and you know, people reporting bugs and so on. And what I struggle with is I have some dogs. I think they are not that bad, and they could use a lot of improvements. And I can do them myself. But it's not improvements like there's missing information. It's just like the dogs could be more useful. And I want to know whether you have any experience in getting people contributing to the docs, because I don't have so much problem like getting people, or I know how to get people contributing to the code, but I still struggle to get them contributing to the docs. And I don't know, like, if you have good input for that, that would be awesome.
Do you want to get your
Can I answer that question? The best way to get people to contribute to the docs is when somebody asks a question. Say, I will give you direct phone support if you open a pull request to our docs, and make it so that you would not be confused the next time somebody like you comes across that problem. That's how I deal with when I don't understand a project. I create a pull request to the documentation, and I always get the best support in the world. They always work hard to make sure that my pull request is good and I understand what I'm writing about. And I get way better support than if I just ask them on IRC or something.
So when they say pull requests are welcome, that is the malicious compliance.
Yes.
if I may add on top of that, like to come back what Miro said at the very beginning of this is contributions to open source don't have to be code. Like as you can see, like people value documentation, it's important, and to me that was always the most important thing to get this message across. Like if you're struggling to use my code, awesome. Can you please help me? I don't want anybody to have that experience. Can you please help me? I beg of you. I will literally get on my knees and beg because I want the documentation to be better. I know that I suck at it, and the important thing is to get the message across. Documentation is super crucial, and we value contributions to documentation. It's not like an afterthought. Those are not the lesser contributees. It's actually the other way around.
I have a different point of view on this topic. I think that documentation is the most boring task. Just, you write some documentation, nobody reads that, everyone asks you like how to use it. Like, I'm not a proficient they are called technical writers. I'm not really technical writer. So, like, I hate creating documentation, but I think that like I cannot let others do my job because I would like them to contribute code because it's the funny part, and I cannot force them to create my own job, like to do my own job of creating documentation because I don't like creating documentation. Why would I force others to do documentation?
There are some people who like to write.
Technical writer.
No.
Can we talk after
I like to write docs, but I just don't have enough time to do all of it. So it's like I need people to help me, but I don't know how to lure them into helping me.
Yeah, you have to, I guess, like start with the documentation somehow. Actually,
How do you lure them to use your project?
force them.
Well, it's useful. Like they want to use it.
It is actually, I think, you know, there's a person who does not like good documentation, maybe even not appreciate good documentation, but on the other hand, there are people who do.
I like good documentation. I'm not the one who likes creating good documentation because it's the most boring task for me.
Yeah, I totally feel you. I think it's similar with Honza.
I think if you don't have good documentation, but your project is useful and used, then you just don't know what documentation is. I think it's on Stack Overflow or something. People are writing the documentation, just not in your documents. Otherwise they wouldn't use it.
Yeah, I just want to throw a topic to the discussion. Have you had experience like using bounties to attract developers and more collaborators, or have you thought about using it?
That's a great question. Maybe it is really a topic, and I actually wanted to talk about it a little bit. Was there one more question about the documentation?
It was just on my source code is best documentation ever.
No,
that's
absolutely not.
I'll fight you on that.
I have to
Different audience. Thank you.
How do we lure people to contribute documentation? I think, and this is just my personal opinion, it's not baked by any data, but I think that people who know how to contribute code, they know how to program in Python or Brainfuck or whatever is your language of choice. They know it, and they usually also know how to use Git and pull requests and all this stuff that we live in. So it's easy for them. They see code, they see a bug there, they know how to fix it, they know how to contribute. At the other hand, most of the people I know either are already paid by being technical writers and they know their stuff. But I don't know really that much, like people who do contribute documentation in their free time after they came back from being a nurse or something. And they might not know Git, they might not know how GitHub works, what pull request is. And if you want good people or not good people, good contributions in documentation from people, you need to be able to explain them how to do that. And that requires more documentation, and you are in a circle.
So if I may to that, my first contribution to open source was a translation. and it was a translation for, what was it at that time? Game the GNOME AIM Messenger or something like that. And I contributed a Czech translation to it. And I had no idea how SVN worked at that time or anything else. So I just found the .po file, which contains all of the translations. I created one for the Czech language, and I went through it and I translated all the messages. And then there was this weird .mo file, or maybe there's the binary compilation.
Now you know.
And yeah, now I know, but I didn't know what it meant, so I just opened it in my editor, and it was a bunch of gibberish, but there was an official word here or there, so I translated that as well. And then I took those two files, and I just sent them over email. And they got merged. Like, I have no idea how. I to this day, like, SVN, no clue. But somebody actually put in the effort, and nobody like sort of pushed back. Hey, you need to submit a real patch. Like, hey, what? No, just whatever. And that got me hooked. That got me hooked in open source, because now when you actually open it, and I think now the project is called Pigeon, you might actually see my name somewhere from like 15 years ago. And I felt really cool about that for a long time. And I did all the things wrong, like every single thing. I even like rearranged the PO file to be alphabetical, and all the different like completely wrong stuff. And nobody cared. They were super happy just to accept my contributions. And now I'm dealing with it from the other side. And it takes a lot of effort sometimes. Like when you get a contribution like that from like a noob like me, where you have this nonsense in your email or somewhere, and it actually requires you more work to fix it and make it work than it would for you to do it in the first place. But you still have to do it if you want other people to contribute to your software, if you want them to feel welcome, if you want them to be happy with their contributions and maybe launch their career into open source. Like that's the thing that you have to do.
Cool. Actually, I think this was a very good point that we touched documentation, because I did a little bit of stats. We're about 50 people here, and during the interview, around 10 people said that they did not contribute at all to open source. This is a great start, as Honza just described. This is a great start to read the documentation that is out there, if there is any, and if there's none, just try to start the documentation with an issue or anything. We'll just move to another.
I have a quick comment.
Okay.
Then we'll do a little bit different topic, but as Honza said, accepting patches is not an easy job. Open sourcing a project will not make your life easier. It will make the project better, probably, most likely, but it will not make your life easier.
Cool.
And also,
well, I just wanted to say that I completely agree with Honza, which he said that you need to take time to like review the codes that someone wants to contribute to yourself, because it happened to me that I created a pull request and nobody was commenting on it on anything, didn't accept it, didn't refuse it for several months. And it's like, well, I don't really want to contribute anymore to that project, you know.
Yeah.
Even if that project was relatively active, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very important, I think.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. It's a difficult world to live in. Internet.
I have the opposite. Usually when I create a project, the first pull request I get after 2 years when I don't remember anything. So I have to read my own code, the documentation which I actually write and I like to write. But always people make pull requests after 2 years, always.
Yeah, like too late. Sweet. Let me just switch a little bit the topic. We have again like different representatives of like different approaches a little bit. I would like to ask you. So open source, like so far we were talking about like giving out code to public. Like, what does it? I'm not sure if it means the same to everybody here. If it is just like I'm doing it for my own good, I will be more famous. or whatever. So if you can talk a little bit from your perspective about some kind of business model behind open source, maintaining open source, developing open source. What are your feelings? How you could make money on open source? Maybe it would a little bit relate to Honza's question, even like, you know, how can you give out a bounty to some some money to a contributor potentially, because like open source does not mean free as free beer, right? It's more about it's just free, right? So let's finish. Who can start? Who wants to start?
We can start on a little, almost a joke, maybe not. We used to say that there are pixies out there at Red Hat, and they somehow generate money, and it proves on us for doing open source. But this is not an official statement.
Yes, I'm actually insanely grateful to the pixies who somehow make it work. Yeah, it's a lot of work.
So what is the translation of a pixie?
Magický skřítek.
Takový ty s těma křídlkama, co jsou v absintu.
Jo.
Little dwarfs with wings.
Fairies. Yeah.
Fairies.
Oh, fairies.
Yeah,
Fairies.
So that is the company. Our company makes money off of open source. It's very similar to Red Hat, with a few crucial differences. So 90% of what we do is open source. However, we still like to eat. We still like to pay our people. So we actually charge for some of our services. And when you look at the open source business models that you have out there, you can divide it into like 3 or 4 different groups. First, which is kind of us and Red Hat as well, is sort of the Ghostbusters business model. You know, who are you going to call? Something goes wrong in your organization, and you need someone to call, someone to yell at. And also, honestly, in some organizations, someone to blame. And that's what we provide. That's what Red Hat provides. We provide support. If you're a large organization and you are depending on our software, you need to always be able to fix any problem. And there are 2 ways to do that. Either you have really good people internally, or you have a pool of 1,000 people, as in terms of Red Hat, that you can call and they will all jump on it, because you pay them a lot of money. And that's the crucial part of the Ghostbusters business model. Sometimes it goes even further, that some organizations, like all the larger banks and stock exchanges and all of that stuff that's running Red Hat or Elastic, they cannot put anything into production without having support for it, because it's dangerous. What happens if it goes down? What happens if the one person in the company who knows it goes on vacation? Like they always, yeah, it's insurance. So on one side we sell insurance. On one side we sell help. We sell sort of shortcuts where we can help you get to your destination faster. You can totally get there on your own. It's open source. You have all the same tools available as we do. We've been doing it for a lot longer. We have all the people who know everything about the product, and that wrote the documentation in the first place, that maintain it. And there is a lot more of us than there is of you, like working in our product. So if you want to get there faster, you have a choice. Either invest time and learn it, or you invest money and pay us. That's a very fair deal that a lot of people make.
So I'm not sure I understood the part where I understand the part with the fairies.
Yeah.
No, they are there. They are just there. They're just like throwing the money into the project. You know? But what I didn't get is you said that there is like a big pool of people out there, and you are able to pay them.
No,
we are employees.
There's a big pool of people in the company.
In the company, yes.
In
Oh,
your
you said
company,
in the
Elastic
company.
or in Red Hat.
Got it.
Not in your company,
Got
but in the company you're paying to provide services and support and whatnot. Just there are a lot of companies that sell software, or they don't sell software but do something a little bit different, like Red Hat or Elastic. But a lot of companies out there that you give money and you get software out of them either way. And if it's sometimes the model is, if you don't pay us, you don't get the software, you can't use it. And that's like, I don't know, if you go to a shop, you want to buy some apples or something, you can probably steal it and go to jail, but if you want to do it legally, you have to pay to get it. But with the open source model, everyone can get it, it's free. But as was already said, you can do whatever you want with that, but nobody will do it for you. You will get no service, like you can't call anybody, you can't have a feature until somebody, I don't know, wants to write it for free time or something like that. And if I want to, as a customer, I can buy a proprietary software, and all I'm getting for it is that I can use it, I might get some support, depending on the contract, I might get something else, updates, security stuff, whatnot, but I can never, ever adapt it, because there is probably no company out there that is not selling open source, but lets you adapt the software you saw it. It's just, I don't know, maybe there are, but yeah.
Sure, I think it would be a different, bigger discussion.
Yeah, but if you pay for an open source company to provide software, you might think like, I'm paying for something that's for free. Why are you doing that? You are doing it to get the services that goes with that. But you also get the freedoms. And the freedoms are for free, but all the support on top of that where the money goes in. And you can either buy just the software, just the right to use it, maybe right to use it for 1 year and then you can't anymore. Or you can buy the services on top of that and keep the freedom, keep the software. I think that's just...
Got it. I understand, which kind of tells me that it's just one business model that we just described. There's a little bit different ways how we're doing it.
So
is there?
We also have another business model, and that is we provide, in our case, Elasticsearch as a service. So if you don't want to run Elasticsearch yourself, you can come to us, you can pay us $2 an hour or something like that, and we'll just run Elasticsearch for you. We'll provide the hardware or the virtual hardware or whatever, and we'll provide you this as a service.
Right.
And there are many companies that do this for many different open source projects. There are companies that do that for their own projects. There are other companies actually that provide our software as a service.
Sure.
Like Amazon, you can buy Elasticsearch as a service from Amazon. They have no formal relationship with us. They just took the open source project and they started running with it, and they're quite happy. So that's another business model that's sort of kind of independent a little bit from the development.
Sure.
Because there are plenty of people who can provide Linux as a service without actually contributing anything to Linux whatsoever.
Sure.
And it differs whether it's a good thing or a bad thing depending on who you ask. And nowadays we see many companies trying to defend against it.
Yeah.
But ultimately, that's the name of the game.
Sure, it is. But on the other hand, it's it can be just like smaller number of companies and projects who can do it, right? Because like there is a service that is very useful, Elasticsearch. That's I remember we were using it a long time ago, right? Makes sense. There is and for example, what Honza just said, we can read Twitter, right? So we saw some stuff about what's happening with Reddit, what's happening with Mongo. That is happening with everybody?
I don't think everybody read that.
Okay. So maybe just to quickly clarify, There are projects, open source projects, who are right now figuring out their business model as well, and maybe they are adapting their license to either not enable anyone else to run it as a service, or maybe support it even more. I do not know exactly the details, but you can read more about what's happening with, as I said, Redis, Mongo, because they were the latest. Is there addition to it?
No, I want to continue with something else.
Me too. Yeah.
I have something.
Because my question would be, and you feel to skip it and continue with it later, is how can a regular person make maybe some money with development of a small project or contributing to a project, if there are any ideas? And Stan, because he's a panelist.
Yeah, well, my expectations are low, like none. If you like it, buy me a beer. It's like, yeah, it's my business model. So far not successful that much, but we will see.
I'll buy you a beer later. No worries.
Thank you. But like, related to business model, I like to do that, so I don't care if you buy me a beer actually, as long as it helps you. So I have kind of different point of view, because like I do my job, I go home, and actually guess when are most of my contributions? Try to guess.
Night?
It's between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. Because my kid wakes up quite early from time to time, and I cannot sleep, so I just sit and do some open source, and I do just for fun. I do
Just for fun.
Just for fun.
It's like a good feeling. Okay, thanks, Stan. Timothy.
So my kind of thing that I wanted to point out is that here we have a group of people who are all from companies, well, to some extent all from companies that are companies that are single stewards of code, which is different.
No, that's just me.
Okay.
That is just me.
Okay. So my kind of question is that I see a big conflict in the open source world between the Wikipedian model, where you have a rule on Wikipedia: you cannot own an article. Even if you created that article, it's not your article, you can't determine its direction in the future. Nobody owns an article on Wikipedia. And Elasticsearch, where Elasticsearch Corporation, or whatever they're called, owns Elasticsearch, they control the future of the project. And that's a big part of their business model and identity, is the fact that they are the best place to go for support, they have the best experts on it, and they have the most control over the future of the project. And I've seen a lot of power dynamics here, and I'm wondering what your opinions are on those power dynamics.
Can I actually ask others to start then Honza?
It's not even good. It's a good.
Okay, so I contribute to a project called CPython, which is the Python interpreter, which is actually, like, for example, Linux, run by a single person up until recently. So there's one person who decides what gets it and what does not get it. Right? So if it's to be called Python, it needs to be approved by this one single person. The beauty of the open source model is you can make a copy, do any modification you want, and not call it Python, and you're fine. Right?
By the way, did you know that there is a fork of Python 2.7, which is created with Python 3 features?
Yes.
So
The author was politely asked not to call it Python 2.8,
yeah.
so they called it something else, and it's fine. Right? So that's the beauty. Right?
It's actually a project.
Yes.
It's alive.
It's alive. You use it. Don't use Python 3.
Yeah.
But,
What he said.
I'm gonna remember this and I'm gonna take a selfie with you.
But yeah, you may not have the trademark rights to the name, but if it's open source, you have the right to make any modification you want.
You say that, but unless it's your first day in the open source world, You're lying to everybody if you say the power dynamic is not there. The
So
power
yes,
dynamic
the
is
power
there.
dynamic is there because there is this one single person who was there with the Python project from the start, knows a lot about the project.
There is nobody who knows everything about the project.
And has spent much more time than you have thinking about the project and about the consequences of the change you're trying to make. That's why people trust that person, right? It doesn't mean you don't have the right to do any modifications you want. There's actually good reasons to trust this person or this company, right? If I didn't trust Elastic to do what's right for the Elastic project, which they might not do right now, I don't know, I might fork it. And that's what happened with the Redis stuff that got closed source now. People went and forked it and called it something else and kept the next
LibreOffice, OpenOffice.
LibreOffice, you have the same thing.
MariaDB, MySQL. Do we let them say something?
It's
first?
a relationship about trust. If the trust breaks down...
No, okay. So we don't let them first speak?
No, totally.
We have a moderator.
Because it reminds me of like also governance of the project. I do hope Augusto has something to
I
say.
think forks are awesome. They bring more competition. Like if you have a fork, it's like you have another actor, right, or another version of your project. And of course, you want your project to be better than the fork, right? Than the one who actually initiated another version of your project. So that's the governance method that I think it works most. It brings more competition and maybe sometimes more collaborations and more users to the customer.
Yeah, like IOJS, they forked Node, and basically it spin up, like it brought the original Node.js maintainers to be more reasonable.
I want to talk about Fedora for a while. So, in case you don't know, Fedora is a project that also happens to be mainly about the Linux distribution that is owned by Red Hat in the way that Red Hat owns the brand. That's the only thing that Red Hat owns. Red Hat doesn't own the code, Red Hat doesn't own the people, Red Hat owns the brand and, well, the infrastructure that builds all this stuff. But yeah, that's just how it is. And Fedora is controlled by Red Hat. That's a fact. But the reason is not that because Red Hat owns the brand or owns the infrastructure hardware. It's because there is meritocracy in the project. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right.
Yes.
Yeah. But if you don't know the term, it means it's somewhat a little bit like democracy, but it's not like everybody gets a vote. It's more like more stuff you do, more votes you get, or even if you contribute, you get a vote. If you don't contribute, you don't give a vote. So we have in Fedora we have boards, committees, councils. It's really complicated, and I don't like how complicated it is. But the point is that how the project is steering, what's happening with the project is entirely decided by those bodies that are elected from within the project. As it comes, there is a lot of Red Hat employees who do work full-time on Fedora. They are known and they do good contributions. They got elected to these bodies and they are 80–90% Red Hat. But if, I don't know, a Black Hat company pours a lot of money into people to work on Fedora, they will eventually be able to overrule those bodies and do whatever they want with Fedora, except for the brand. That's the different story. It's owned by Red Hat. But so you say that there is a company that controls the project, but it only controls it because it contributes the most. There have been situations where there was a company-owned project like this, and then some other company came, started contributing and getting people to work on this open source project until the majority of the people working on this open source project were from a different company that originally started this project. And that's how you acquire an open source project. You buy it, you pay it with people that work. Petr wants to say something?
I do wanted to ask you actually for an opinion.
Well, I was going to ask a follow-up question.
Please do.
So, based on what you said, does it make you nervous at all to see how Microsoft has started to really contribute to the Linux community as a whole? They recently announced that they open sourced 60,000. They put 60,000 patents through an open source license. So exactly what you said, that another company can come and start to, plow resources at an open source project. How do you feel about Microsoft's newfound commitment to Linux?
I am excited about what Microsoft does. And I'm not afraid that they will pull people into CPython and destroy the project. There is absolutely no financial benefit in doing that. Maybe I just don't have a large imagination for that. But as long as Microsoft is pouring people into, let's say, CPython development, and money actually as well, that's just fine. I mean, why not?
And they can take over CPython and make it bad, but since it's open source, it fulfills the definition, the legal, all the boring legal stuff. We can fork it and to call it something better and remove all the stuff we don't like. For example, what Microsoft does is their VS Code editor on the website says, it's open source, download this. It's not open source. It's not open source. It's not fully open source. You can get the sources for the thing that it's built on top of, but you can't get the sources for the actual thing you download from the webpage. Right? So yeah, I don't like that stuff, but the actual open source thing they're doing is pretty good.
Very interesting.
It's thing is growing.
And by the way, just one thing, there is Python, the name Python and the language called Python is protected by the Python Software Foundation. So even if Microsoft took over all of the development of Python, they still cannot control the name, the brand.
They could control the Software Foundation in the very same process.
Yes. But that is a very well-defined protection mechanism. The same is with the Django Software Foundation or something like that, where, or for example, kind of coming in from the other point of view as a sort of the aggressor, we as Elastic, we contribute a lot of code to the upstream projects that we are built on top of, like Apache Lucene. And it's an Apache project backed by Apache Software Foundation. And even though we contribute a lot of code, we still, even if we wanted to, which we don't, couldn't control the name. We couldn't hijack the entire project. Because that's exactly why there is an Apache Software Foundation or Python Software Foundation or Django Software Foundation in the first place, to protect the project. The brand, yes. And, for example, Django actually has a license for the trademark as well, and that specifies under which condition can you call your project Django Dash or whatever, etc. And that's sort of the next level game that is afoot here.
That is very interesting to hear. Because these non-profit, right, foundations that control the brand, that is super important with the governance, and also the belief of the public. I believe I'm here. I'm this single contributor to a project, and do I believe that I'm contributing to something interesting, to something cool, to something that will not change into something bad. That's why we have these non-profit foundations, Django Software Foundation, and Honza mentioned. I'm super happy that it's that it is there. It appeared. There is the Linux Software Foundation, right, as well. I'm not that familiar how it operates, but it's good that it's there. And for example, even when me and my colleagues here with Winding Tree, when we started the project, we were what is the most important thing? It's it's some kind of foundation that will exist somewhere and will not benefit. We will just like control some of the stuff. It's interesting.
You can actually move some existing projects into some foundation. That's what happened to NetBeans. As far as I remember, they moved to Apache. So,
for scientific stuff, there's Focus. Conservancy for the license stuff.
Okay. Not the GNU Foundation for non-GNU stuff.
But if Oracle kills you, you can still move somewhere else, like your project.
Sure. Honza just left.
Timothy is standing there for an hour.
That's fine. It's fine. He's good.
I'm used to it.
It's like
I'm American. I'm aggressive. You should actually be trying to like shut me down.
No, American who lives for 20 years in the Czech Republic.
So if you want to do open source, never shut active people down.
Yes.
Come here.
Here, speak up. Oh my God! You just ruined the whole thing. No worries.
It's 10 minutes after 9.
We'll switch to lightning talks in a minute. No problem.
So the thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to change the direction back to financing, because actually the power dynamic is really important to the financing issue. Because there's times when you can sell the power dynamic. For example, and this is an example that wasn't sold, but it happens to be an example that I know of. Linux kernel has a disagreement between the multi-core support community and the real-time branch. There's a real-time branch of the Linux kernel that has never been merged into mainline. There are people that would pay millions, tens of millions of dollars, not people, companies, that would pay tens of millions of dollars, maybe even hundreds of millions of dollars, to get that branch merged. There are other companies, and the National Institute of Standards, which would pay as much just to have it so that it wouldn't be merged, because it conflicts with multi-core and supercomputers, which Linux currently supports in the mainline. So there are times when you can actually sell the power dynamic, and you can say, yeah, we'll support your use case that's in conflict with somebody else's use case, if you pay us money. It's not something that Linus has done, but it's something that maybe Elasticsearch would do. I don't know. Have you had a situation like that?
Not really. So we haven't had conflicting stuff, but we definitely have had people asking for different things. And it's not that we would do one that would be against the others, but we definitely always pay attention to what will get us where we want to be. Exactly, like we want to eat. We are a company like any other. So is Red Hat. So is anybody else. If there's more money in that segment, maybe that's where we'll focus. That doesn't mean that we'll neglect everybody else, but the priorities are dictated by the market.
If I contribute to an open source project with my Red Hat email address, it means that contribution is somehow making Red Hat better off. It's also making the project itself better off, but I don't do contributions under that email that just help the project and would hurt Red Hat. Right? I can do that on my own time or something like that. But you're always looking for alignment, right? Do something that helps you, but also helps others.
And by the way, that's not necessarily an either-or question. Like you can do both, and we obviously try to do both. We try to contribute upstream. We try to be a good citizens of the open source community, etc. But yeah, when it comes down to it, like we need to survive, which is also most of the time better for the project itself, because that means that we'll be around, we'll be maintaining it, we'll be supporting it, we'll keep pouring money into it. And so it's just what it is.
So Red Hat forks almost every project we give to customers. So if there are changes that only benefit our customers and not the upstream project, we just make the changes and give it to people. We usually call it the same name with like quiet agreement of the authors. But yeah, sometimes there are changes like that.
Questions? Like, you people are from open source companies, right? Most? More or less, I don't know, like open source company,
mostly open source.
Okay, you have your own project, but you said like you want your company to contribute on open source, and they are not, and you're from open source company and you do open source. I do open source. It's easy for us to talk about all this, but there are people from like normal Czech companies who do their own business, who do their own stuff, maybe like more like agency stuff, like for clients, one-time job and so on, and they never contributed to open source because they didn't have the opportunity. It's easy to have an opportunity to contribute to open source when you are working for Red Hat or like yes.
That's why you work there, right?
It's like it's so natural that you don't even think about it. But when you're in a like random Czech company, what is the opportunity for you to how the company can contribute to open source? Like what are the ways? What they can do to make the world better? Well, if they don't have a product,
I think that I'm the best person to answer this because I work for Ultima, which isn't an open source company. We're an alternative transportation company. And we run all open source software except for like Windows on some personal computers. And we use open source software because we control it, we can customize it, and we don't have any vendor lock-in, and we have a lot of certainty involved in using all open source software that we wouldn't have if we were using software that we had purchased.
Yeah, but it's using. I mean, like.
But since we're using it and we have programmers on our payroll, then we're contributing to open source by using it and developing it.
Yeah, and I think you take it for granted, but I don't think everybody else takes it.
If the company is using open source software and they want to make a contribution or a change to it, it's much easier to ask the maintainers to look after that change. To ask the community, here's something that probably will be useful to you, merge it in. Maintaining a fork by yourself is super hard. Never want to do that. Right? Then the upstream project changes and gets extra functionality, and that conflicts with your change since somebody knew about your use case or your change. So don't maintain forks. Always try to get everything merged.
Yeah, but I didn't ask.
Honza, I do have to stop it. It's my big apologies, but we do have to keep some time for lightning talks. I know it's super interesting, and we didn't even touch forks of cryptocurrencies which are open source, and that would be such a huge thing and such a huge fight. I would love to see it. I would love to hear it, because Bitcoin is open source, and there is governance, and there is everything. We did not talk about it. We have people who are contributing to Ethereum here. It is amazing and interesting ecosystem we live in. We just have to, I believe the biggest thing we have to do here, as I said, 50 people here, 10 people said no contribution to open source at all. Our duty, our task of the people who contributed or who are maintaining open source projects or whatever is to make the 1/5 of us here and the percentage that is out there to make comfortable to contribute to all our projects that we maintain or contribute to and stuff like that. So please have this in mind, because there I wanted to ask actually a question which Tyler here would be the best to answer, like how easy or difficult it is to hire people to work on open source and all the stuff that we are here talking about, and we're pretty privileged, right? Because like okay, I want to work on open source, and don't get me wrong, Miro and Peter and all the people in it are doing an amazing job. Honza is doing an amazing job. You guys, you are doing an amazing job, even though it's difficult to describe because because you're not working for this, like, can I call it prominent company? And I think that's the difference, right? Because you're doing pretty hard job. Hard way to do it, right? So let's figure it out together. After the lightning talks, we'll have the networking time. Tyler is here. He's amazing because she is not a coder. She's like from the outside. She's like looking at us and she's like, okay, how this can work? Like, how can I make the dynamics work here? We are the coders, and we can get hired for Red Hat, right? I can just go and work for Red Hat, and then there's a guarantee I will work on open
Let me
source
interrupt
or
you.
Elastic.
You said we need to end, and now you have a monologue for 5 minutes.
That's me. My apologies.
That's your lightning tech.
Thank you very much. Thanks for. 10 minutes for beers. We'll prepare computer for lightning talks. We have 5 lightning talks, which is 20.